One person is dead after two planes collided mid-air over the rural west end of Ottawa. Police are right now on scene where one of the planes crash landed. Paramedics saying the occupant was dead when they arrived. Well, for a closer look at how this could have happened, we now turn to a former plane crash investigator. Larry Vance joins us in Ottawa. So, Larry, thank you for joining us today. I want to begin with this collision itself. How unusual is it for two planes to collide midair?
Well, it's not a common occurrence, of course. It's something that happens now and again. But if it's going to happen, Michael, it's going to happen in a circumstance like what seems to have happened here.
Oh, what do you mean by that?
Well, I mean that it's near an airport that's not controlled by air traffic control. It looks like the airplanes were both operating from that airport in the vicinity of that airport, CARP. One airplane is a high-wing airplane that was the airplane that was the low airplane. The other one was a low-wing airplane, which was the high-wing airplane, and they hit together. It's something that happens now and again, and like I say, if it's going to happen, those are the circumstances that it typically happens in.
Well, let me call up a graphic here because these are not the two specific planes per se, but we do know that one of the planes involved was a Piper, the other one was a Cessna, the kinds of planes. And as you say, the Cessna is the high-wing plane that you were describing, the Piper, the low-wing, and the fact that the Cessna was below the Piper, you say this is probably one of the causes of what we saw happen here?
Well, I don't know if it's a cause. It's a circumstance. If you're flying a high-wing airplane and an airplane hits you from above, you've got the wing up above you that restricts your visibility. The same way that a low-wing airplane restricts visibility looking down when you're above. So that will be a factor. There's no doubt. These airplanes were operating in an environment where it's basically see and be seen. And I know you're supposed to report in. They're supposed to know that there's other airplanes in the area, but there's nothing technology-wise to keep these airplanes from hitting together. Mm-hmm. What has to happen is the two pilots have to be aware of their circumstance, and then they have to look out for each other and make sure that they're not on a collision course.
Explain to us, Larry, a bit more about how pilots in this scenario, two small planes, how do they communicate with each other without air traffic control?
Well, there's a mandatory frequency in airports like CARP. Or at least a suggested frequency. I would say a mandatory frequency out in CARP, although I can't confirm that. But they would be on the same frequency. They would both have radios in their airplanes. They would both be reporting their positions and their intentions. So that would mean that they should know that the other one, where it is or where it is in general terms, and where it's going. And so once you're aware, and then you start looking around, it gives you a better chance to pick up the other airplane visually. There's also patterns that they have to follow. You have to follow a certain pattern if you're taking off from the airport or landing at the airport. So those things together keep you apart.
Now, you yourself are, as we say, a former investigator for Transportation Safety Board. What will investigators be looking for in this case now?
Well, they'll have a lot to work with. That area is pretty well covered by radar, not specifically for that airport, but radar from Ottawa and from the radar sources around here will have captured at least the larger of the two airplanes. It would have a transponder in it. I'm not sure if the smaller one would. That's an electronic connection to the radar. But in any case, they'll have that to work with. They'll be able to tell which directions these airplanes were coming from. They'll be able to tell what altitude they were at. They'll be able to tell who, if either of them, was in the wrong spot at the wrong time. They'll have lots to work with. And they'll also look at the wreckage. They can tell from the wreckage itself where the airplanes hit together. It looks pretty obvious that the twin-engine airplane got hit in the landing gear, right landing gear, which means the landing gear was down, which means it probably was intending to land at that airport. I would say. Maybe he was taking off, but probably he was intending to land. Maybe the other guy was taking off. Who knows? But they'll go through all this, and it'll be an investigation. They'll be able to figure out what happened. To prevent it again, that's quite another matter because we're talking about something that is at an airport that is and will remain an uncontrolled airport for quite a long time. This is the way it is. It's probably the way it should be. That's the most economical way to run an airport, and without that flexibility, there would be no airports like CARP.
Larry, thank you. I appreciate the insight.
No problem. Thanks.
And Larry Vance is a former crash investigator who joins us in Ottawa.